Warning: Josh is not an expert in any of the things he talks about. He simply uses his head and does a lot of research so you, the audience, don't have to. Keep in mind, he doesn't know everything, so take the things he says with a grain of salt.
All right, what is going on, everybody? This is another episode of Josh Said What, the podcast that'll change the world. I have on today a very special guest. He is the founding commissioner of the Professional Box Lacrosse Association. I got Steve Donner on. How you doing, sir?
Good, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How's your day been going so far?
I mean, every day right now is really busy. We've
Oh, I
got
bet.
openers coming up in different directions. So every day is a new challenge and a new level of excitement as we get ready to start the season here.
Oh yeah, definitely. And to go ahead and jump right into it with it, for the fans at home, for the average viewer, I don't think they fully understand when I say the founding commissioner. Is that right?
It is correct. I'm one of the founding commissioner, one of the founding owners of the league as well.
Okay, so how did that come about with you becoming the commissioner and owner?
Well, it's a long story, but I've been involved for lacrosse, pole lacrosse, for over 30 years. I was actually one of the founding members of the NLL that exists today.
Oh
And
wow.
started the Buffalo Bandits years ago in the old MILL, started the Rochester Nighthawks and owned them for 14 years. And so I've been in lacrosse for a long time. And as the NLL was growing and, the player pool was evolving, today I think the player pool in the NLL is like 96% Canadian. In the last 10 years, Josh, the growth of U.S. lacrosse has exploded and it continues to grow, probably the fastest growing sport in the country right now. And organically, U.S. kids are playing, field, and they're finding ways to play box. And so, for many years, the last 5 years or so, myself and John Livesey and a couple others, have felt there's been a growing need for another league to, open up opportunities for the American players, American coaches, to play more box lacrosse and play professionally across the country. So this is a culmination of years of thinking, and the whole vision is to grow box lacrosse in the United States.
I like that vision. I like it, especially because for me growing up as a kid here in the U.S., I never really heard or saw too much of lacrosse or even just opportunity to actually be there in person, participate. But I've always had a fascination with it because I'm still relatively new to fully understanding the sport. But I like that your attention is really focusing on bringing it more to the U.S., making more of a dominant growing sport too.
Thank you.
Oh, say again, you froze for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just said, oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome, sir. You're welcome. And then to go ahead and give a breakdown for the average viewer who still doesn't really know too much about the sport, kind of give me a rundown of how the sport works and everything about it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's exciting to explain to new fans is you don't have to know anything about box lacrosse or indoor lacrosse to enjoy the game. It's a combination of one of the most exciting sporting events you'll ever see. It's a bit of a rock concert with a lot of music. It's very interactive with pregame parties, postgame parties. Our players have a ton of impressions on Facebook. Our league is very active, social media through Instagram and Facebook. And so it's a league for today, a lot of interaction, but the game itself is a 2 hour and 20-minute just dose of nonstop action, a lot of scoring, big hits, a lot of athletic plays, and most importantly, just a lot of fun. You don't have to know the rules to enjoy it.
Wow. And it goes for 2.5 hours, you said?
2.5 hours. It's when the game is over, it's almost like an encore of a rock concert where the fans are saying, "Please don't stop." This is so much fun. We don't want it to stop, and it just drives them back to the next game.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So you got like an encore where they're just demanding more action for it.
Yeah, and so and what's nice is the tradition of the game is our fans get to celebrate post game with our players, and sometimes even the visitors show up at the post game party. So it's an interaction culture of lacrosse, and it's just wonderful. It's just a lot of fun for the family. It's fun for young people alike.
Nice, nice. And so if I wanted to, I see there's like an exhibition match going on and I jump into it. I know you have those, I don't know what those staffs are called that you have the ball, but ultimately your goal is just to get to the other side, make it into the net. And is there any extra stuff that goes on in tie with that?
Sure. Well, I'll give you a little rundown. So all the rules are based on the teams running north and south up and down the floor. So there's no offsides. So if a goalie makes a big save, he literally can throw the ball the length of the field to an ongoing attacker for a breakaway. There's in hockey you have offsides and icing and things. You can play the entire field in box lacrosse. You can't escape. There's a 10-second rule that if once the team has the ball, it has to get across center field line, the midfield line. If you can't, you give up the ball. And so it encourages the offense to move forward. There's a 30-second shot clock. So once you have the ball, you have 30 seconds to get the shot off on goal and get it registered on the goalie. And if you don't, you give up the ball. If you get a shot on, you get the rebound, you get another 30 seconds to take another shot. So it's a game that's meant to be played north and south and played fast and hard.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah, because when I was a kid, I played soccer, and it was just a constant demand where you had to be moving and moving. And whenever I've seen any action with lacrosse, I've always had that vibe. It's nonstop pace that goes back and forth. So you like really have to focus on your cardio and conditioning.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the guys in our league have got a little wake-up call because the NLL and some of the other box leagues have sort of a platoon system where they switch offense on and then defense on, depending if you have the ball. Our guys have to run both ends of the floor, almost like hockey players. So, man, if you play in the PBLA, you have to be in great condition to play both ends of the floor.
Oh, I bet. I bet. And so with because it just recently started this year, back in what was it, July, that you went ahead and formed it and started the PBLA?
Yeah, it's been probably, a year and a half in the making, but we announced it in July. Yes.
Okay. And you guys have about like 9 teams right now, correct?
We have 9 teams, all in the U.S., and great cities, some traditional lacrosse historic cities like Syracuse, some newer markets, like in Charlotte that, is maybe not known as a lacrosse hotbed for indoor, but, great Division I schools in Carolina. And so there's a great hotbed of talent out that way. So it's a combination of traditional lacrosse markets and some growing markets.
Nice, nice. And you're aiming for like from coast to coast to try to bring in more followers, more activity, more teams?
Yeah, I think we've got 9 this year. We have already 4 or 5 teams that would like to join next year. I think we'll expand with some methodicism and not to grow too far too fast. But we have a vision to go down the East Coast, a vision to go Midwest, and someday we'll build a bridge out to the west, the far west as well.
Okay. Nice, nice. Yeah, the West is where I'm from, so I'd love to see some action with the lacrosse coming over here.
Yeah, we've got some interest already in San Diego, LA, Seattle.
Nice.
So it's gratifying that people have sought us out, like our business model, like our vision. We just have to be careful that we don't spread ourselves too wide, too soon. Right now, we have a very good footprint that makes sense geographically. It makes sense financially for travel. And so we want to grow, smartly and not get too excited and just grow everywhere.
Yeah, because you don't want to hit that avenue where you overexpand without realizing it, and then you have to kind of backtrack and then deal with whatever action comes from that. That's a nice, smart, analytical approach to it, where you're instead of just jumping overboard immediately from the gate, you're very methodical with your approach, taking it step by step and letting it grow more organically.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah. And so with lacrosse, how does it work on a year basis? Is it just constant throughout the year, or does it have seasons?
So ours has a season. So we started training camp 3 weeks ago at the end of November, first week of December. Our season starts December 29th with sort of a cool opening game at the ILA Center on Six Nations Reserve in Ontario. It's sort of like the origins of the game. We have 2 teams playing the Jim Thorpe All-Americans, which is an ode to diversity in lacrosse, and celebrating one of the best athletes ever in America, Jim Thorpe. We named our championship trophy after him, and we have the Syracuse Spark going into play. They're coached by a Native American, and so it's going to be a classic, great game between two great teams, and both coached by Native American coaches, celebrating the origins of lacrosse, that their culture, the indigenous culture, is given to the game.
Nice. That's awesome. I like that. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And with so you mentioned championship, how does that part work? Do you guys have like a tournament bracket system where the teams are competing to see who get the trophy?
Well, we'll have a 9-team league. The top 4 teams will make the playoffs, and from top seed to low seed, they'll have one game elimination series until we get to the final, and have a 1-game final, almost like a Super Bowl final.
Okay. And then the winner of that, they get the biggest trophy saying that they won, and then they start the new season and you go through it again?
Yes, they'll have the Jim Thorpe Trophy, named after Jim Thorpe, and they'll carry the bragging rights to that trophy for the entire year until we get into the playoffs next season.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I like that. And so when it comes to not just forming the teams, but also finding players, how do you recruit the players?
Well, it was exciting. So when we announced the league, on our PBLA website, PBLA.com, we started a player portal and said, anyone interested in playing in the league, please register online with us. And without a lot of promotion, we had 300 or 400 players sign up almost immediately, which was exciting.
Wow.
And as we word spread about us, before our draft, we had a draft in October. At that time, we had 700 or 800 players sign up, for our first draft. And after our first draft, which was 10 rounds for each team, our player portal exploded. And eventually we had 1,200 players that wanted to play in the league. So at the end of November, early December, we had what was called a supplemental draft, the second round of drafting. So the first draft was 10 rounds. The second supplemental draft was also 10 rounds, and it coincided with the last cuts of the National Lacrosse League's rosters. So after they made their final cuts, there was other additional players available. And after our first draft, the number of players that were interested in our league, it really became real, because when they saw the talent in our league after the first draft, it attracted another level of talent to want to join the league. So I know we had this vision, Josh, that we wanted to have top talent in our league, and you'd hope that would be there. And I'm so proud to say that after our 2 rounds of drafts and some free agent signings, our product is going to be one of the most exciting lacrosse products here in the United States.
Nice. And when you explain this stuff to me, and these sudden bursts where you go from having 400 to 700, 800, 1,200 plus, and your whole system just crashing because how many people want to join. For me personally, I feel like almost there's a new refreshed desire for a revamp in sports in the US, because we've always had NFL, we've always had baseball, basketball, and now you see MMA being a different sport that's now just bursting out of nowhere in the US. It seems to me almost like the US, they're now switching over to these new style of sports that's just gaining more traction, and it's more appealing, and you're going to start finding more talent like you are right now.
Yeah, thanks. So I think what we're seeing is the fans want action today. They don't want a slow game. They want a fast moving game. All of our attention spans are not what they used to be, and so everyone's enjoying a little shorter attention span. I think they want interaction. Social media is it in the United States today. And so if you have a league that, is sensitive to the needs of and the wants of the social media crowd, and our players, have their own followings and are very interactive with our fans, I think that's what's going to make our league really popular and fun. Because, we haven't played a game yet, Josh, and we've had over 7 million interactions on social media.
How many?
7 million.
7? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that's before we've played our first game. And so, we've, from day one, we wanted to make it interactive for our fans. We had a name the team contest for all of our cities. And so we had hundreds of thousands of entries of team names, and all of our team names that we have today were in large part selected by our fans. And so from day one, we've made them feel part of what we're doing, and we're communicating with them weekly and daily. And as we grow as a league, we're going to make them feel part of that growth.
That's awesome. That's incredible. 7 million. That's incredible. That shows already that there is a demand for something that's going to be more fast-paced action pass, such as lacrosse, because like you say that you already have the emphasis on social media, and considering how favorable on Facebook, Instagram, I could see where you're able to capture just 40, 50-second shots of a lacrosse game, that peak time, throw it on social media, and then boom, you have massive engagement like that.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate that our social media team is literally the major league team of social media. They sometimes we can't keep up with them because they're so creative, and every day I put my phone on or look at my computer, they're just knocking my socks off with something new. So, and that's what we're trying to do, is new content, fresh content. And if it's knocking the founders off their socks, and hopefully our fans are enjoying it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now to kind of pick your brain with it, because it kind of popped up in my head with the draft. How does that whole process work? Like the behind the scenes aspect of it?
Well, it's been fun to watch our coaches. And, again, I think what level of league you have when you see the level of research and preparation your coaching staff does going into a draft. And every one of our 9 coaches, they use their resources, whether they're friends, the national statistics of collegiate players, statistics of pro leagues, summer leagues. There's a lot of stats online. A lot of our coaches have been involved in the game for years, and so they have a network of other coaches and scouts that are always feeding them information for players. Once word got out that our coaches are involved in the league, they were going to all the resources to put their preparation together for the draft. And, we wanted a good mix of players, in our league. We wanted, there's an outdoor league, the PLL, which has an outstanding brand of lacrosse. We certainly wanted players from there. We have the NLL, and players that have been trying to crack the NLL for years, and maybe as Americans couldn't quite crack a steady lineup. We wanted those players. We had a very talented group of indigenous players who have been playing box lacrosse since they've been born, and we wanted an indigenous to make their mark in our league as well. So when you saw the draft unfold and guys are putting their teams together, I was just clicking them off one by one, saying, wow, these coaches have done their homework, and they've all built their teams a little bit differently, and they've had a philosophy on how they think they can win the league. Until we start playing games, we won't know who's going to be the most successful. But all I can say is, each team is going to have a very distinct personality and a mix of players a little bit different from the next. And every one of them is going to be extremely exciting. We had a preseason game last weekend between Elmira and Syracuse. And even though it was a preseason game, the 2 coaches prepared for this game because there weren't many preseason games before the start of our season. And neither team wanted to lose the game. And so that game was played like a playoff game. The intensity and the hard hitting and the movement up and down the floor, that was a close game. I think the final score was 12-9, but it was a 1-goal game for most of the entire game. And I said, wow, for a preseason game, this is amazing. If our fans get a load of this every week, what a great league we'll have. And it's just an indication of the commitment of the players and the coaches and the preparation they've done. So we've built our teams through very talented coaches who've worked really hard to do this.
Nice. That's incredible. That's awesome. Yeah, and I used to live in Phoenix, Arizona as well, and I used to train at an MMA gym out there because I'm a big fan of MMA and I participated myself. While I was there, I ended up coming across a lacrosse player that started training there, and he started training because the COVID lockdowns stopped the sport, so he wasn't able to participate. But when I was just training with him and rolling, he had a natural athleticism. He was very strong, and I could tell immediately from wrestling with him that he was an athlete, that he had played some sport at that point. And I forget all that he was giving me details on with him in lacrosse, but it was like the same exact way that you're explaining. It's just nonstop, constant pack action. You need the cardio, you need the conditioning, you need the ability to just get the job done.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the other thing that the fans will just be amazed. So they're already great athletes without a stick in their hand. And, they have to run up and down the floor. They have to have stamina. They have to have physical strength to take the hitting that goes on in the game. But then you add the element of putting a stick in their hand and what they can do with this stick and with the ball while they're running at full speed, while they're changing directions, while they're getting hit and, cross-checked or slashed, certain levels of that is legal. The stick skills that the fans will see will just make their eyes pop out of their heads, because it's incredible, and they do it in tight spaces. And so all I can say is it's so hard to describe how fun it is. You have to come out and see it for yourself to really believe what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, one of these times in the future, you're going to have an event here in Arizona, so that way us on the West Coast can go and check it out.
Well, we have the Jim Thorpe team, and the Jim Thorpe team is part of the league growth, is doing a little barnstorming. So some of their games are going to be played at neutral sites. So we are looking for a couple neutral sites. Who knows? We may end up in Arizona, maybe not this year, but next year. And that's one of the cool things that with the Jim Thorpe, ode to diversity. They're our road team. They've got some home games, but they're playing on the road to grow the game, show the indigenous culture and the diversity of the team, and maybe coming to a market near you.
Hey, yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. We get a bunch of people from here in Arizona and check it out. I know I'd be there for a fact, guaranteed.
Well, I did win a championship in Arizona. My Rochester Nighthawks
Really?
team, yep, in the NLL. There was the Arizona Sting, and they played in the old Coyotes arena. And so they hosted the championship game against Rochester. I'm happy to say that Rochester came out victorious, but it was a great trip. The fans really enjoyed it. And I thought right then and there, they didn't have the team there now, but I could see someday lacrosse going back to Arizona.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. How long ago did you play that game?
Oh my gosh, that has to be about 11 years now.
You said about 11 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow, wow. So what was your impression of Arizona? Because are you primarily from the East Coast?
Yeah, I worked for a year out in LA. I've been out to Arizona a little bit. It was my first. At that time, we were out there for a few days, so I really enjoyed it. It was definitely a little bit different, pretty flat, pretty dry, needless to say. But it was the arena area around was gorgeous, and the development around it was gorgeous. So we really enjoyed our trip, in particular because we won, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of people, they get surprised when they come to Arizona, like especially like peak summer months where they get hit with the dryness and the heat. And then like I'm from like Havasu City, which is in Arizona, and it's the hottest populated region in the entire country. Like the summers here will typically get like 130 around that range. It gets hot. And I get when I worked for a hotel out here, I got all kinds of people from all around the world, like Germany, Poland, Austria, where else? Literally everywhere, even from France, Italy. They come here, they experience the heat, and they go off of Celsius. So when I tell them that it's like 50 Celsius, their jaws drop, and their eyes just go wide open.
Yeah, no, I've been out to Vegas quite a bit too, so I've experienced the hot dryness. Make sure you have a water bottle with you at all times.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you keep a 5-gallon jug on your back
at all times. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so tell me, what's the plan for the PBLA for 2023? What's your goals for the next year?
Well, I think, first of all, we'd like to establish ourselves, as one of the most exciting lacrosse leagues, in business, one of the most exciting sports in business. I think, going into next year, we'd like to expand by at least 2 teams. We might expand to as many as 4 if the combination of cities is right. And so I think we're going to take a lot of time this year to make sure our product's right, treat our players properly, and our fans properly, and entertain. And hopefully, over the next 3 or 4 years, we'd like to grow by at least 2 teams a year. And in some cases, if we go out to the Midwest, we'd have to grow by 4 teams to form an entire division. So depending on where we're growing, we'll either go by 2 or by 4 teams.
Okay. And do you have the division set up based off of the geographical location in the States?
Yeah, we have a map, in our office, and that we've sort of got a long range plan of pins as to where we'd like to be, where we think we can grow, and where the player pools are. And so while we're looking for expansion, we're also looking, okay, where can we tap in to player pools that either exist or are growing that we can help grow. And so it's a fun combination because it's finding the right arenas, finding the right cities that aren't oversaturated with sports, finding if you can be a bigger fish in a small pond. I think that helps our sport. Like in Elmira, it's not a big city, not a lot to do in the winter. There's hockey and there's lacrosse, so it's going to be a big deal coming to the area. In Syracuse, it's just such a traditional lacrosse market. They have both Syracuse University, they have the Onondaga Reserve there. Just years and years, decades of lacrosse traditions. We had to be in that market. So as we look, I think long term we have to be in the Baltimore, DC area for sure. We'd like to be more in Carolina for sure, and work our way down, the East Coast. And then, man, we've got a lot of interest in the Midwest, like Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, Wichita. So it's amazing, that we didn't even know there was, people playing out that way in great numbers. But it's not as big as some areas, but they're growing rapidly.
Yeah. Now, where do you see lacrosse going in the next 5 years, like on a national level, and like you get to a point where, like, how you see these other sports, they start scouting players at a younger age? Is that kind of like a route you plan on going in the next 5 years?
Oh yeah, we have to really support youth lacrosse and get more young players playing indoor and box in the off season. So I see us supporting summer, sort of like collegiate style leagues where college players are playing in the summer, learning the box game. I think getting into amateur youth lacrosse and getting kids playing the indoor game along with the outdoor game, because I think playing both makes you a well-rounded lacrosse player, well-rounded athlete. Yeah, so a lot of emphasis on the growth of the youth game moving forward.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. I would honestly love to see more of the youth get into it, because like when I was a kid growing up, all there was just constantly soccer, basketball, and baseball. Not too much variation outside of that, especially here in the West, because like I lived in Nevada, see sports there, Arizona, California, and it's always kind of the same repetition, and there's not a lot of diversity from what I noticed. So I feel like lacrosse for the youth especially would have a lot of success over here in the West.
Yeah, thank you. I think both as a participation sport, everyone wants to try something different, right? So lacrosse is a great cross between baseball, between hockey, between football, basketball. Some of the rules in lacrosse are designed around basketball too. Mm-hmm. And the other thing for entertainment, for fan seekers going out looking on a weekend, we've all said this, right? Man, I'd love to do something different this weekend. What can I do that's just different this weekend? That's coming out to a box lacrosse game. That's going to be your different entertainment option in a weekend coming towards you.
Yeah. And plus, with it being such a fast-paced, action-packed game that could go upwards 2.5 hours, you got all kinds of entertainment stored for you.
Yeah, and then you watch the guys go at it hard for 2.5 hours, and then if you want, stick around for the post game and mingle with the players and talk about the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And so, like in mid-action in lacrosse, when they're playing, are they able to get like rough with each other, like kind of like with rugby? They're able to shoulder check each other. Obviously, probably not tackle or anything like that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no tackling, but tremendous amount of body checking and hitting it, full speed. And the other thing too is, like in hockey, cross-checking with your stick is illegal. In box lacrosse and in field lacrosse, cross-checking is legal between the shoulder pads and the hip, as long as it's not violent. You can tap and sort of stick check the players. Not quite a slash, but you can use your stick to sort of impede the player's progress, also from the shoulder down to the hip, not at the head, not below the hip. So a lot of body checking, a lot of stick work. And just, it's almost like watching pinball sometimes. The ball's moving around so quick. The bodies are moving around all over the place. And next thing you know, the ball's in the back of the net. So it's an awful lot of fun.
Wow. And they don't have, for the equipment, it's the face helmet guard, it's the stick, and you have elbow pads and knee pads. Is that all the protection that you wear?
Yeah, so they'll have the helmet with a face mask. They'll have sort of a shoulder pad, and some guys wear arm pads because there is, like I say, checking on the arms. Uh, the goalies look, in the past, the NLL and some of the other indoor leagues, their goalies look like Michelin men. They're just big, rolling, not heavy guys, but with all the equipment on, they just look like the Michelin men. So one of the things our league is trying to do is we've come up with goaltending equipment that's a little more streamlined and a little thinned down. And so our goalies are going to be hopefully a little more active. They move around the goal more like a hockey goalie and not just stand and block, and allow them to get into play a little bit. So they get the ball, they can move the ball up the floor, trying to get the transition going at the other opposite of the floor. So, yeah, so it's like I say, it's a game built for today. It's a game built for, short attention spans and action-packed, fun-loving fans.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so if I remember, you said correctly earlier, it could be played indoors and outdoors?
Yeah, so the game of lacrosse, there's a game that's outdoors called field lacrosse, and it's played with more guys on the field. It's like, I think, 11 players, and there's no boards around it. It's like on a football field. The indoor game, which we're talking about, is played more like on a hockey rink with turf on it. So there's boards like hockey boards, there's hockey glass, and you can bounce the ball off the glass, off the boards. You bounce bodies off the boards, while you're checking. And so it really condenses the game into a little smaller surface. The field lacrosse game is actually experimenting with smaller fields and less number of players on the field, called sixes. And that's a very action-packed game as well. So there's just a lot of variations of lacrosse being played outdoors and indoors. All of it is fantastic. And we're trying to take the American players who traditionally have played more on the field level outside, bring them indoors, and use their skills to make the indoor game a more exciting game.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you ever get any players that get out of hand, like you see within hockey, where the shoulder check hits too hard, or like they really go at it and then they start actually fighting? Do you ever come across that situation?
There'll be some occasional fights, and it's not not the type of fighting you see that's set up as a gimmick, but it's when you're hitting hard, you're going hard for 60 minutes. And sometimes these teams would play each other more than once in a year. Sometimes rivalries begin. So yeah, there's going to be an occasional dust up. There's going to be occasional scrum, I guess you would say. But overall, it's really normally just hard hitting action and great stick skills.
Okay. Okay. So they keep the sportsmanship pretty good throughout the
Yeah, they really
entire
do.
thing.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So you mentioned before that you also played lacrosse and you've done other sports as well. What's your own like sports background with everything you've done?
Well, boy, so when I was younger, I was an all-sport guy. I was into baseball. I was into lacrosse, soccer, hockey. As I got a little older, I really sort of focused more on hockey, believe it or not. And I went to college, played hockey in college, played a year of pro. And then I got out of it, got into the front office in marketing and sales, and stayed in hockey for a while, then eventually spread my wings and, worked in the NHL for 12 years. Well, it was more than 12 years. It was 10 years for the Buffalo Sabres, 2.5 years for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I started hockey in Florida with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I left Tampa to buy my hometown team, my hometown hockey team in Rochester, New York, the Rochester Americans, which is a dream come true for me. And we won the Calder Cup championship in our first year, and we made the playoffs every year I had the team, and we were in the finals, I think, 3 other years, and unfortunately we lost the other 3. But then we got into lacrosse and started winning championships in lacrosse. We got into professional soccer, started winning championships in soccer. We were the only, I don't know if you're familiar with Major League Soccer, Josh, and there's a tournament in professional soccer called the U.S. Open Cup, and it pits amateur soccer teams all the way up the level to Division III pro teams, Division II pro teams, and Major League Soccer teams. And the Rochester Rhinos, which we had, was a Division II pro team. And we marched through the Open Cup tournament one year. We beat 4 Major League Soccer teams in a row and became the U.S. Open Cup champion of the United States, the only Division II team outside of Major League Soccer ever to win that trophy. And
Wow.
so something we're quite proud of.
Nice, nice. Do you still keep that trophy all propped up?
Still keep the trophy, still have the ring. I proudly have the ring for sure.
Nice. What was that experience like in that moment where you won that?
Well, it was unreal because we knew we had a good team, but every Major League Soccer team we played, I think early on, the first team we played didn't take us too seriously. The second, we played at home and had a big crowd, and we won, and we had a little smaller field in Rochester, and so I think the Major League teams made a few comments saying we only won because of the field. And then the last two games, the Major League Soccer put us on the biggest fields they could find, and then we won the semifinal game against Columbus, and we played in a hurricane, on down in Virginia Beach actually, and it was like 45, 50-mile-an-hour winds, and we pulled out the game in a dramatic fashion late in the game, and then went to the final, and it was on ESPN, and it was amazing that we were there, and then we won the game 2-0. And when the game was over, we sat there and we said, my gosh, for this moment, for tonight, we're the best team in the United States of America in professional soccer. And what's been fun, I watch the tournament every year, and some teams from the lower levels make a run and come close, but no team has ever repeated what we've done. So every year that goes by and MLS wins the Open Cup, we just feel better about what we were able to do way back then.
Yeah, so you get to bask in that glory, knowing that you got to make a stamp in that history, and then just the exhilaration of having that whole story arc go through, where the first team, you said they didn't take you seriously, second team, it felt, oh, it's because of the size of the field, and then they really come to terms and you get that glorification and that satisfaction. Just the story. I love stories like that.
Oh, and then winning that game in dramatic fashion in a hurricane. We were actually down by a goal with, I think, 10 minutes to go in the game, and we somehow, some way, and I think the wind was, the wind was at our back actually. So it was the first half we took the wind to our face, and but it was so crazy. You kick the ball and would go 10 yards to the left, 10 yards to the right. So once we got behind late in the game, I felt, my gosh, there's just no way we can come back and win this game. And then we got the tying goal, and then basically in stoppage time, we got the winning goal, and it was like a movie almost. It's like at that point it seemed like it was destiny happening.
Yeah, something that's just going to be etched in not only your own personal history but in the world of sports too.
Yeah, so proud of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would be proud of that too, because as like any athlete, period, it's almost like an innate desire for them to have legacy in whatever sport that they participate in, and to be able to set records or to accomplish something that very few can accomplish or possibly nobody else can do. I say that's the ultimate peak of what athletes yearn for.
Yeah, no, you've hit it right in the head, and to play a role in U.S. soccer history, it's very humbling, and to go see the highlights and have, every year around Open Cup time, the story comes up every year. Is there another Rochester Rhino team out there? Is another team going to do what the Rhinos did? And then, when we see a team making a run, I'm always not sure how I'm cheering. I mean, in a way, I'm cheering for the underdog, but at the same time, I don't want anyone to really do what we did. So it's always sort of a mixed bag, but fun to watch either way. But to know we're a part of that history, and we get to be celebrated every year, it's just an honor, and it's a joy to be part of that memory.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can imagine some funny hypothetical where there's a team that manages to do it and you guys are there, but you're like just jealous, is like, screw you guys, we did it first.
Maybe quietly, but we'd be cheering for them, openly. But everyone has pride, and so everyone handles it a little differently.
Yeah, there's pride too in the fact that you've accomplished something that, again, I say that so few people have accomplished. But not only that, is that for somebody to actually achieve it, they've had to put in way more work than you guys had to. They had to put in more time. They had to really bring the craft down to a T to where they could reach that level of greatness in that moment in time.
The thing I was proud of too is of our coaches and players. We sat down before the season started, and we were trying to put together a team to win the Open Cup. And so, we boldly said to our team, when we had our first dinner together, is that you guys are all here for a reason. And that reason is, we want to go out this year and win the Open Cup championship. And the expression on the players' faces at the time, some of it was like, yeah, let's go. Some were like, yeah, right. We're a Division II team and that's going to be a tall order. But then when they saw how serious we were, like everyone bought in. And that was our goal from day one. And to be able to go out, establish that goal first day, and then achieve the goal. My gosh, I wish everything I did in life was like that. I'd be even more successful than I am. But it was a little bit of a lesson on how to put together. You got to have goals, right? You got to shoot for the star, and then you have to have the right people, the right coaches, the right players. And you said more than anything else, our players totally bought in, were totally dedicated, sacrificed an awful lot, fought for each other, and found a way to win a national championship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I always put incredible emphasis on, because I've gotten big back into lifting, exercising, and then I especially do a lot in the sport of MMA. And just to get to work with a lot of fighters and the experiences I go through, in order just to go through all this, you need experience, you need dedication, discipline. Motivation is only a fraction of it, because you're not always motivated, but you have to make yourself disciplined to the craft, to the sport, and in every endeavor.
So true. No, you hit it right in the head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm a big fan of MMA. Like, do you follow anything at all in the sports of MMA?
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, I've been pretty busy, but some of the big fights and some of the stars, yeah, you can't help but enjoy those. I mean, in fact, we may be doing a movie coming up with Cowboy Cerrone, and so I know he's retired now, but what a personality he is, and what a great guy he is, and so his popularity still is making him possibly a great fit for a movie we're trying to work on.
Nice. You said Cowboy Cerrone?
Yeah.
Nice. He was one of my favorite fighters growing up watching.
Oh, he's so fun and entertaining, and I think he's going to carry that over to the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, like, even comparing to other sports, like as we're talking about lacrosse and everything, I'm also thinking same way with MMA, because I don't know why, just MMA has been the most fascinating sport for me with a lot of the things I've done. But it's with lacrosse players, for example, when they put in all this work, all this effort, the blood, sweat, and tears, the cardio, conditioning, everything, and then also just the raw hunger and desire as a competitor to achieve a legacy, to achieve some level of accomplishment or record. The same thing too that I see nonstop with MMA fighters. Like, I work on with a lot of amateur fighters, and the things they have to go through, the sacrifice they have to make, working 40 hours a week jobs on top of training 4 to 8 hours a day, going God knows days without eating to do a weight cut. It's just incredible. It's incredible to see what athletes do for themselves and how much they push themselves to achieve legacy and greatness.
No, and sports like MMA, it's the individual. It's do or die for the individual. The work you put in, the results you have in the ring, and that's real fighting. That's war. That's war in the cage. There's no doubt about that. And our lacrosse athletes are similar in respect, like you said, that most of them have 40-hour-week jobs and have to find time to train, time to practice, and then just play at an extremely high level on the weekends, and then go back to work on Monday. So there's a lot of sacrifice. They've got to question whether it's worth it, and but when you see their skill level and the end result, obviously it's worth it for the fans, and hopefully it's worth it for the players.
Oh yeah, definitely. It makes me think of a term that I learned, because I study textbooks my off time, but there's this psychology term called achievement motivation. And it basically just falls down to, there's certain individuals that has this fire inside of them that's willing to take greater risk for greater reward, versus others who don't have that same desire. With these athletes, these lacrosse players, MMA fighters, everybody that's putting in that sacrifice and that work, where maintaining a family on top of a full-time job, on top of trying to train and putting food on the table and every other obstacle that life throws in your way. When you have that fire to take that greater risk, it makes the story so much more beautiful.
No, it makes the story beautiful. And again, like I say, MMA, I mean, that's real life fighting. And that's, it's one-on-one. It's how bad do you want it? How much can you take in the ring? How much can you sacrifice without tapping out? A lot of the personal decisions have to be made in that ring. And before you ever get in the ring, the preparation you have to do and the work you have to put into it just to compete separates, I think, a lot of the athletes from not wanting to do it. So my hat goes off in full respect, to anyone in those types of sports where, you're only counting on yourself. I like team sports a lot because you learn a lot how to be teammates and you learn how to get through adversity with friends, shoulder to shoulder with you. But I also have tremendous respect, for those athletes that have to go out there and do that alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're not in there. Like, you have your team, you have your corner, your coach, and everybody during training camp that helped you. But once you step into the ring, you're by yourself with one other person.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on. I truly do appreciate it. This is fantastic conversation.
Josh, I've really enjoyed this. Really appreciate the time you've given our league and myself and allow me to share some of my own personal stories. Great questions. And like I say, hope you get a chance to check us out. Our games are going to be on Lacrosse TV weekly, a game of the week. And hopefully we'll get the PBLA out to Arizona someday.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And if you want, you could send some of the links to James, have him forward it to me so I can go and watch more of it.
We'll do that. We'll appreciate that. We'll happily do that.
Awesome. Well, heck yeah. Well, hey, again, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you to the fans for watching. This is Josh Said What, the podcast that'll change the world. And hey, we'll see you in the next one.